everyone, my name is Rachel Mauchline. I am the Assistant Director of Speech and Debate at Durham Academy in North Carolina. I also serve as a staff writer for Champion Briefs for Public Forum, and this is the April 2025 Public Forum topic analysis. This topic analysis, as with others, is going to explore strategic considerations, definitions, and key arguments for both sides of this topic. For some, this is the postseason. April is the time of state championships, district qualifiers, and the Tournament of Champions in Lexington, Kentucky. If this is the topic that you are potentially ending your season or ending your debate career on, I truly wish you the best of luck and hope that this topic analysis will provide you some insight. But as always, I would highly encourage you to check out the Champion Briefs brief, which includes pages upon pages of arguments, research, and just general analysis that will help shape and prepare you for the upcoming topic. The topic that we are debating in the month of April, is resolved. The United States federal government should substantially increase its investment in domestic nuclear energy. While I know that some individuals on the topic voting really wanted to talk about corn as we prepare for Iowa in June for the NSCA National Tournament, I'm actually really excited we're debating nuclear energy. I think this is a topic that we often skirt around in many divisions of debate, but addressing it head on, especially in the time that we're in with our focus on climate policy or lack of focus on climate policy, is really important. I think the great thing with the nuclear energy topics in general is that they really do intertwine a variety of different topics or topic areas, from foreign policy to the environment to national security to the economy. There are so many implications that this topic has that it's not just one realm that this topic will delve into. I also would say that this topic is definitely going to allow debaters to have timely conversations. Currently, this topic is one that is being debated because of our energy policy as a country, especially with the new presidential administration. While this topic analysis gives you that brief insight, I'd highly recommend that debaters, no matter if you are debating on a state or local level or a national tournament like the TOC, that you keep in mind that the narratives that you're wanting to create should be ones that don't just focus on one specific aspect of nuclear energy and the investment in it, but do take into account those different subsets or areas that I was talking about. So this presentation or analysis is going to kind of look at three things. We're going to first talk about the strategy. Then we're going to talk about the AF or the pro side, and then we'll finally conclude with the neg or the con side of the topic. This topic analysis is just an overview, and I'm sure there are many arguments that I have found throughout my research that I'm sure you will as well, that will help craft your arguments for this month. Again, as I say with all topics, I think the most important step, and it sounds tedious, is definitions. I think the first of those that's really important in this topic is that of investment. While this seems obvious on face value, I think it's really important to have a clear distinction that teams have between a question of investing nuclear energy compared to that of a producing or developing of nuclear energy. It means that keeping in mind resources and investment doesn't just have to mean money, but it's a question of what support would there need to be, such as resources, which could include money, or individuals, employees, administrative power that will be needed to support nuclear energy. I'm sure that both sides would have ways that they might frame that differently. The second phrase that I would definitely consider defining is that of domestic nuclear energy. You could always definitionally break this down into domestic and then that of nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is about the production using fission and a uranium atom. I'm going to be super honest, though, and say that many of your judges are not going to sit there and be nuclear physicists or aware of nuclear fission or energy production, so I would encourage you to not get overly bogged down in the definition of it. The reason I say it's an important component to define is because it's important to know what you're talking about. While I'm sitting here and could certainly spend 5 to 10 minutes talking about what nuclear energy means and how it is created and how it is comparative to that of renewable energy, I'm not going to do that work in the topic analysis. I would have a really clear synthesis if I was you, whether it's top level at the top of case, or you just have it in your back pocket ready to explain in a cross question. But having an understanding of what exactly you are supporting by investment on the pro, or what you're questioning for the investment on the con, is really important. This topic is also one that's important to kind of see that is a policy action. Policy-based motions or resolutions are asking for a change to occur. The only way to really understand why a change should occur is to look at the history behind a topic. I think that many people's understanding of nuclear energy, and I'm sure there'll be many ironic puns or comments, is from the Oppenheimer movie. While the history often with nuclear energy does begin with the Manhattan Project in 1942, there is a lot more nuances that come with this history, such as the development of nuclear power plants that began as early as 1957, or the incidents that occurred, such as the 3 Mile Island accident, that have occurred that have shown how our stance towards nuclear energy has changed. All of these things, while they're history and they're bogged down, create the stance of what is currently happening with our U.S. nuclear energy. In the last 30 years, there has been a questioning and a diminishment of the growth that had been made towards nuclear energy in the 1950s and 1960s because of accidents that were impacting individual safety, security, and their overall health, which means there's currently a question. But the question is one that debaters are going to answer this month, because it's not just going to be a understanding of like accidents happened, we've rejected nuclear energy for 30 years. Affirmative teams are going to present the question back to the judge. Why don't we change how we stance now? And that's why are we talking about this again? There have been growing conversations in the last decade about our environmental policy, not just even the past decade, but even further than that, regarding global warming, environmental concerns, biodiversity, climate change. Would nuclear energy be better compared to the status quo? That is the question that I think teams need to grasp and discuss. With the United States focusing more on climate policy in the last administration with President Biden, now with President Trump coming back into a second term, the priorities have certainly shifted. With removing yet again from the Paris Climate Agreement, it's showing a change in policy, flipping from environment being a priority under Biden to potentially being less of a priority under Trump, which means that entertaining the issues that we have discussed before would be curious to see how it will be different now. As the United States is losing also the nuclear race to countries such as China, we also need to consider the long-term implications of policy changes. Is now the right time to shift towards nuclear compared to renewables? The only other strategic consideration beyond this kind of narrative is that teams need to be able to justify why nuclear is better or worse than the status quo, whether that is wind or solar, or whatever type of energy you want to talk about. Because central questions in this debate will come back to: why is there a need for change? Why does the change have to happen now? And what will the consequences of that change be on other sectors of the environment, the economy, society in general? With that, let's kind of delve into the specific sides of the topic. The affirmative side can simply take into account that we should preempt the doubts that people will have about nuclear energy. The best way to do it is to steer into the skid. You are going to have to address things such as waste disposal and accessibility and safety concerns. Whether this is done in your argumentation directly or in your blocks, it's important that teams kind of keep that in mind. The first argument that teams are most likely going to be making on the affirmative is about climate mitigation. There is a really good article that I cite in my topic analysis that is from the International Atomic Energy Agency that talks about how nuclear power has avoided the emission of a vast amount of carbon dioxide on both an annual basis, but just in general as well, and how nuclear energy can mitigate climate change to low or zero carbon emissions, and having that comparison about how other energy sources don't do the same. This can be impacted out in a variety of different ways. I think with environment impacts, you can take it in a number of directions in whichever one best fits the narrative that you want to share. The second is that I think another argument teams will make is about how a growth in nuclear energy is going to provide economic benefits, such as research and development, job markets, and connected roles such as maintenance and safety. Supporting this growth provides benefits, whether it is benefits as the United States having hegemony on nuclear energy, or if it's benefits that come on a localized level of the job market or industries booming. I think that there's an argument or at least an internal link chain to be made about US versus China in the nuclear race for energy and what that could mean. Let's kind of delve into the negative. I think the negative teams in this topic have the historical precedents on their side, and using that questioning type rhetoric fuels that potential worry or bias against nuclear energy that people may have. First argument I would talk about is the expense of nuclear energy. The World Nuclear Association has so many different statistics about how nuclear energy is expensive, both in the long and the short term. While the resolution itself says a substantial investment, it means that there's potentially either going to be a deficit or there's going to have to be some type of a trade-off. Negative teams should probably have some type of analysis that says that X part of our economy or X part of our infrastructure is going to be depleted in a world in which finances or resources have to go towards nuclear energy. And however teams frame that would probably frame how that impact scenario would work. The second argument that I've seen, I would assume teams will make, will just be this overarching laundry list of nuclear energy concerns, such as accidents, such as radioactive nuclear waste and how it doesn't have much disposal, the cost of that disposal, the risk of death, the risk of illness. There's many ways the negative can frame this debate, with human life being the focus or the framing of the debate. And that's probably the best way to do it, to highlight that even if we do invest, what about mismanagement that comes in the aftermath, as seen with other historical examples where there was an investment in nuclear energy that was substantial, but then there's eventually going to be a cutoff, and what would that mean for nuclear energy? That's really just a preview. Honestly, this topic analysis could go on much longer, but this is to really just show you that this topic is actually one that I think is interesting to discuss. I'm excited to watch debates on this throughout the month of April. And no matter whether you are finishing your season, you're continuing your season beyond this, or you're finishing your debate career, just know that I'm excited to see what students come up with and create on this topic. And I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. Have a great rest of your year.